Welcome back to Jacques in the Garden. Today we are going to be covering a special topic of how I've turned this greenhouse into a sustainable and actually off-grid solution to grow plants throughout the entire year. Now I am going to be covering a couple different systems today, including how I get the most out of this, but one of them is going to be rainwater capture and use, because that's a pretty substantial roof, and the second one is how I actually get power into this greenhouse without connecting to the grid. Before we dive into all the systems I've put in place to make this more sustainable and also to keep it off the grid, let's do a quick tour inside. I'll show you what plants I'm growing, how they're doing, and what I'm actually using this greenhouse for. So the very first thing I did when we put the walls up is actually move this green stock in, which is full of bare root strawberries. Now the varieties here are, I believe, Seascape. They're ever-bearing strawberries, which means that they can fruit throughout the entire year, unlike June-bearing strawberries or anything like that. One of the really cool added benefits is that these are self-fruitful, which means that they don't need pollination, which is fantastic if you're inside a greenhouse, because of course there are going to be less pollinators in here. But the thing that's crazy is how well these have done. Even in the dead of winter, we've been harvesting strawberries almost every single day. And now as things start to heat up, I have one plant down here, which has like 20 flowers and berries on it, and they all taste incredible, so I'm not even bothering to thin them. Even the leaves themselves look super vigorous. It's really quite amazing what a greenhouse does to certain plants. Now, speaking of certain plants, tomatoes are one of my favorites by far, and that's the second thing I moved in here. It's starting some tomatoes and putting them in. Cherry tomatoes in particular will do much better in the winter time because they don't need as much sun to fruit. But the other one I've put in is early girl, which is starting to actually blush. So I'm very excited to see that. I've been eating a couple of them. We have been getting the very first cluster ripening over these past couple days here, and they taste absolutely incredible and sweet. The one thing, of course, is though, inside a greenhouse, you might have less airflow, so you might end up with more things like powdery mildew, which is what this little dot is right here. But again, I didn't have power in here at the beginning. I just recently got the whole system powered up, and now I have ventilation in the form of this fan, which we'll talk about more in a moment. Now, the other thing that's really cool is that some of the peppers I overwintered just decided to grow again, and I've even had a ton of fruit off ones like this Bifacial pepper. Very tasty, very prolific. It's so cool to see that even in wintertime I could get some nice hot peppers out of the garden. Now, the other things in the back here are mostly tropical trees that I've had in containers for a while and I just didn't have anywhere to put them. So of course moving them into the greenhouse made sense. And one thing that was interesting is that the guava here actually fruited in December. So we got a couple huge guavas that were super sweet out of the greenhouse in the middle of the winter. That was a great treat. Now in the middle here, I will move in some chairs and we'll come out here and sit at night or during a rainstorm. It sounds absolutely amazing. Very cool place to chill in the wintertime especially. The main thing I'm most excited about though in the greenhouse is starting seeds. Everything grows super vigorously in here. The protection, the extra light, the extra warmth, they just do absolutely wonderfully and they look super healthy. I've been very excited to see that. Now of course one thing that, like I mentioned, is that you do need airflow or else you get these leggy sort of weak seedlings. One thing that might cause that too is lack of light, but this wall right here is a south-facing wall, so I have plenty of sunlight coming in throughout the day, and that is like the main consideration when it comes to growing seeds outside is do they have enough sun, and that has been satisfied. The one thing that wasn't was the actual airflow, and it was just too hard to do without power in here, so I reached out to our sponsor for the video today, was able to get this, which we'll dive into right now. We are about an hour and a half from sunset, so the sun is quite low on the horizon, but let's take a peek at how much power we're generating. So we'll come down here, it tells you the recharge time based on the input, and currently it's only generating 67 because like I said, it's almost the end of the day here. So right now there's 0 watts going out. So what I'm going to do here is turn on this fan. The fan is the most critical part of the greenhouse. Without it, this greenhouse would suffer, because it's going to be blowing against these seedlings, which does a lot of different things. This little motion right here is helping make these seedlings stronger, so they're not going to be all weak. And also it's keeping the surface dry, which stops algae from growing on the surface, which can kill your seedlings. And actually probably the most crucial is that it circulates air in the greenhouse, which keeps down fungal diseases on things like my tomatoes over here. And also it actually helps break up the stratification of hot air up here and cold air down there. This airflow is now pushing everything around. Honestly, without a fan in your greenhouse, you're going to have a hard time. So where is this energy coming from? Let's take a pop back here. This cable, which eventually I will manage more properly, is coming down here, going under the foundation. And then what it does is it hooks up to the back of this Delta 2 Max here. So there's room for another solar panel if I wanted to. And down there you could see the 6 outlets where I could run a whole bunch of things out of it. I also have this green one here, which is actually hooked up to a grow light and a heat pad, which I will be using when I start my peppers very shortly here. Now that cable is running across the surface of the greenhouse where it goes to this 220 watt panel, and this is a bifacial panel. What that means is that if any light reflects from underneath, and that definitely is going to be happening in a greenhouse scenario with all this, that is actually capturing from both sides. So it's a double-sided solar panel. It could work on either side, which is honestly really cool. I didn't know something like that existed. And the other thing I wanted to mention is its position. Now you might think I'm blocking all the sun on my greenhouse here, but take a look at the shadows of something like my arm. I'm gonna hold it out. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. So the shadow is going all the way over here into this plant. So anything that hits that is not going to be stealing light from the main plants in the greenhouse because it is on this extreme end where the sun is actually pushed away towards there. So that is how the power makes it into the greenhouse. I also actually got a Wave 2 from Ecoflow. This is basically a mini split that could heat and cool, and it's off grid. So I could hook it up into my battery pack here, and in the summertime, when it gets like over 100 degrees, that is going to be how I heat and cool this greenhouse, in particular cool, and it's probably going to be saving me. The sponsor for today's video is Ecoflow. They were generous enough to send me the Delta 2 Max with the 220 watt solar panel, the Wave 2 heater and cooler. It's basically an off-grid mini split that can be run off a battery, which is very cool. I'm definitely going to be playing with that in the summertime. But this guy has 2,000 watt hours of power. I know this because the power in our house actually went out for about 10-15 minutes, luckily only that long. And the first thing I did is I grabbed this, went inside and plugged in a refrigerator and looked it up, and it said that they could run a fridge for about 14 hours. So that is just an incredible peace of mind to know that my food isn't going to be thrown out at the end of a long power outage. And recently we've been having some quite impressive storms. We'll talk more about that later when I talk about rain capture, because we got 4 inches of rain in the span of one day, actually like 6 hours, and the annual average rainfall for San Diego is only 10 inches. So it's quite a lot, and actually a lot of people in San Diego got flooded and had to evacuate. And if I ever have to evacuate, this is definitely going to be one of the first things I grab, because it's going to be able to charge our laptops, our cell phones, and keep us connected to the ones we love and our friends and family. So this is a wonderful backup solution for not only powering your greenhouse and keeping it off the grid, but it's very easy to actually take and put in your car. You could grab the solar panels and be off the grid wherever you are, whether it's camping or whether you're in an emergency situation. Now this does have a bunch of normal outlets in the back. It has, of course, some USBs in the front, and you can actually stack multiple batteries. There's a connection back here where you could serialize your batteries and stack them up to get even more power. So I'm just very happy to have a system now that gets the job done for what I need, but also when disaster strikes, I know that this guy's got my back and I'm taking it wherever I go. Now, speaking of disasters, like I mentioned, we did have quite the rainstorm, and I built a rain capture system on this greenhouse to try to be a little bit more sustainable so I wouldn't have to rely on all that water just washing away. I wanted to capture as much of it in the garden without having to invest heavily into rain barrels. Today we are finally getting some rain, and I wanted to show you guys exactly how this gutter system is working. So what I've done is I've added a gutter to the outside on this side of the greenhouse. This then goes down through this little gutter channel here. Got an umbrella I gotta watch out. The little gutter channel passes underneath the automatic vent here, comes over to this side, where then actually connects to the other gutter. So if I pop up over here, this side of the roof drains into this gutter, and all of that water then collects into that bottom one, and all that goes underground and passes its way over to here. So that brown little lake you see there is the water runoff from the greenhouse. So that then floods this basin. This basin will slowly infiltrate the water into the soil all around. So over there, down here, and then anything extra is going to come around, wrap around this bed, and hit this section here. So the water hasn't come down hard enough to totally flood this, but that little spot right there is actually a berm. So there's a hill of dirt behind it, and the idea is that the water will come through, flood that area, and then slowly drain into the ground, which will then water my pollinator patch. All right, guys, we've had almost 1.5 inches of rain. So here's how it's holding up. I actually extended out the swale here. So all of this is now being captured and slowly infiltrating into the ground. Now, if I had just let the water run off the roof, it would just pull wherever it landed and not really go where I wanted it. By capturing it, and keeping it in this channel for this period of time, it allows this water to slowly sink down into the soil surface. This is a much better way to deal with the rainwater, and it really makes sure that the soil will get a very, very deep soaking and replenishment. So this is a rain capture swale, and I gotta say, I'm very proud of how it's working. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that you'll notice nowhere in the garden is there any pooling water. The soil here is very capable, even under this amount of rain, of soaking it all up thanks to all the roots and things like that. Let me take you over to my side yard. Absolutely flooded out, crazy amount of water just sitting. Soil is compacted, there's no plants. Also, what the heck? Might be a gopher tunnel here. They got flooded, so I'm not mad about that. Definitely don't need any gophers in my yard. But here's what it's looking like. Just absolutely pooling water here. Luckily, the chickens are on slightly higher ground, and they have, of course, a roof, so they are staying nice and dry down there, but they're definitely not happy. I have to say I'm quite proud of how this swale system held up during that rainstorm, but since it was such a heavy storm, a lot of this channel has filled its way back up. In order to make this a permanent solution, what we're going to do now is actually dig this a little bit deeper, and then I have something to put inside of it that should make it last much longer, and we have another maybe major storm coming this weekend, so I definitely need to get this done. Now, if you're wondering, why am I doing this instead of getting rain barrels? Well, I looked into the price of rain barrels, and it turns out that they could be thousands of dollars just to hold something like 400 gallons of water. 400 gallons of water might seem like a lot, and of course it is a noble thing to try to capture it and use it, but I just can't afford the budget of buying all these rain tanks, so instead I'm diverting the water to somewhere more useful, like my garden. And I actually have major plans for this section over here, but let me dig this trench out a little bit more, and I'll talk about exactly what we're putting in here and how I'm going to make best use of this water. All right guys, sorry for the spotted light, but here's where we're at. Here's the spout where the water comes in from the greenhouse, hits this wood chip bank, and everywhere I walk right now is all that swale that I filled in with wood chips. So it comes over here, takes a turn, and as you can see, I have built up that bank of soil on the left side here, and that's just going to allow for any extra water to pile up if it needs to. So all of this is now ready, and we should have a pretty good rainstorm here soon. And it honestly looks quite nice, and it's also now not a tripping hazard because it's not an open pit. So all in all, I'm very pleased with this rainwater capture system. Now that we have the wood chips in the swales and basins, here's the plan. Right now there are all containers here, but the containers can't make use of the well-watered soil because they are well contained. So what I'm going to be doing instead is putting in a miniature fruit tree orchard. It might sound a little bit weird because the greenhouse is here blocking a little bit of light, but of course it is glass, so light can get through. And even right here you could see that at this time of day, the sun is high enough that this is getting full sun on these branches, no problem whatsoever. Now in the summertime, the sun will be even higher, and this whole area will get full sun during that whole season. So this basin is going to water the soil deeply, keep these trees well nourished, because these wood chips will break down, feed the soil, and feed the fruit trees. That will be in an upcoming video, but that is all I have to say for the rain capture system, and I've got to say, I'm very happy with how it's working. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing how I'm powering my greenhouse and also making use of the wonderful roof that I have here to capture this rainwater and make use of it in my garden. Now I've got even more seeds to start, if you could believe it. This isn't enough over here. And if you wanted to use a discount code, I do have an affiliate code in the description for Ecoflow that'll get you 5% off. And of course, that is a commission for me, just to be fully upfront with you guys. So I'm gonna go back to seed starting, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.